Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Crime Beat Conversations. I'm here with Caroline Rose, Director of the Crime Conflict Nexus portfolio at the New Lines Institute. And today we're going to be talking about Captagon production in Sudan. With the fall of the Assad regime, we're looking at what are the possible new hubs for production. And with the ongoing civil war in Sudan, we're curious how Captagon production is playing out. Thanks so much for joining me, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Rafi, for having me.
So, Caroline, I'm wondering, in this recent report that the Captagon Trade Project at the New Lines Institute published, flagging Sudan as a hub for production, what conditions there make it ripe for illicit drug production, and particularly Captagon?
Definitely. Well, I think that with illicit trades, they thrive in instability and insecurity. And it's really the perfect recipe of what we've seen and unfold in Sudan. Of course, we've got civil conflict. We've got a lack of oversight from law enforcement agencies and governance. There's also been lost trust in civil institutions and lost credibility, which has further created space for illicit economies like Captagon and other synthetic drugs to thrive. Additionally, there is widespread trauma amongst both civilians as well as a need for insurgents to use stimulants like Captagon to improve their battlefield performance, as well as provide alternative revenue streams for them to fund themselves and to arm themselves. And so as a result, I think that's why we could see Sudan potentially emerge as a key Captagon hub, inheriting some of the remnants from the Assad regime in Syria.
Thank you. And you mentioned the Assad regime in Syria, and with the disruption in that supply, this now huge disruption and huge demand, presumably, do you expect Captagon in Sudan to fill that gap and meet that demand? Is that something we should be looking out for?
I don't think that we will see the Captagon trade become as large or one sole actor, like, for example, a warring faction in Sudan like the RSF. I don't think we'll ever see them be able to produce Captagon at the industrial scale that the Assad regime had. That's just because we really, with the Assad regime, saw a state fully back and sponsor an illicit drug trade. Whereas in Sudan, it's more so warring factions, in addition to some lone wolf actors and warlords that are trying to adopt Captagon production as efficiently as possible, but are nowhere close to the scale and the scope that Captagon was in Assad regime era Syria. I think that the same goes for militia factions and other criminal syndicates in the region. They will try their best to try and fill in different parts of this gap, but there will be no one actor that will establish the monopoly that the Assad regime had in Syria.
Thank you. And finally, Caroline, where else should we be looking for production hubs and emerging production hubs beyond Sudan?
It's a great question. I think that we should all be looking at Iraq very closely. Iraq already had existing Captagon production at a very small scale, but it also has very similar conditions that are conducive to criminal actors thriving and expanding their operations. It's also a crossroads for other synthetic drug trades like methamphetamines. I also think that we should be looking at Yemen, where there has already been a very heavy and steady stream of Captagon trafficking, and there have been some small signs of production amongst Houthi militants. I also think that in northern Africa, in Libya, that should also be an area for further analysis, especially since so many former regime allied and aligned networks have existing relationships with different factions like Haftar in Libya. And so as a result, I think there are quite a few different areas and countries where this trade will overspill after the fall of Assad and the disruption of major industrial scale production.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us and sharing these insights. And thank you all for tuning in to Crime Beat Conversations. Please be sure to check out our upcoming episodes and to also take a look at this recent report from the New Lines Institute's Captagon Trade Project, which will all be linked below.